Ian, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
Good. Do you feel ready to present today?
Yeah, I should. Can I quickly test out sharing my screen just so I can?
Yes. Let me see if I can.
Oh, it looks like I. It looks like I'm allowed to. So let me.
It looks like you're allowed to.
Yeah. Oh, this. Okay. Oh, yeah. Here we go.
There.
Cool. I just want to make sure that I'm in. Side two. Perfect. Okay. Cool. That works. So let me get out of here. Cool. Yeah, I just want to show the sort of the design, the updated design.
Yeah, I think that's great. And hi, Tim. Good to see you.
Good evening. Good to see you guys.
Seeing you has reminded me, since I haven't thought of it in 2 months, that I have to make that statement at the beginning of the meeting, and now I got to go hunt it down. So talk amongst yourselves. Ian, I've also made you a co-host of this meeting. So as you see people popping in to the waiting room, if you could just let them in while I'm hunting down that statement.
Hey,
Hey, Lucinda.
Good evening.
Jessica, do you want the memo about the tip program? Like I have it up. I don't know if you have it, if you need it on the screen when I talk about it or not.
I think it would be good to have it on the screen. Ian is able to share his screen. Are you able to do that?
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think then just having you go ahead and share your screen as you're talking
Okay.
would be perfect.
Okay.
Lucinda, do you know where that statement would be that says the thing that I'm supposed to read at the beginning of a meeting like this?
Let me email it to you. Yeah.
Hey, Lucinda, can you go ahead and send that to Nick too while you're at it?
Yeah. Let's see.
I came in just in time.
Oh, all right. It got moved.
I know it used to be like on the policy board website somewhere.
Chip has included it at the beginning of the TJPDC, like the commission packets for the PDC. So if you can't find it anywhere else, it should be in one of those.
I got it.
Awesome.
Got it.
So Sandy, I don't know if you're doing it on purpose, but for some reason you're very quiet. You can still hear you, but just quieter than usual.
Is that better?
Yes.
I'll put my.
I think you should awkwardly hold it up to your mouth while you talk the whole time.
I can clip it to my shirt. I just can't go very far because it's tethered to my computer, so I just can't get up without removing it.
So the preamble has like some things that are like it says the policy board and stuff. So you'll have to like change the words.
I should be able to handle that. Thank you for sending that.
Yeah. And I learned how to do the links in the PDF and make them look nice.
Congratulations. I did think they looked very nice.
Oh, thanks.
But
Well,
joke's on you, Lucinda, because now I'm going to ask you to do it instead of Nick.
That's okay.
someday,
happy to help.
Jessica, maybe we'll get you set up so you can do it yourself.
Oh, no rush, Sandy.
Hi everyone, it's Tristan's here.
Hi, Tristan.
How you guys doing?
Good. How about yourself?
I am well. I'm impressed you guys show up before time. My own line of work, we show up right at time or a minute late. That's how we operate, at least in my company.
What do you do again, Tristan?
Now, IT project management for S&P Global.
Ah,
So in the big gray building
yeah.
down by Market Street Garage.
Let's see here.
Oh, this might not be the right thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. This looks
This
like
is weird.
a series
Yeah.
of emails.
Huh. Not what it was labeled as. Let me look again.
Okay. But Sandy, otherwise you said it's on.
Yeah, it should be the very first or second page of any of the commission packets for like the PDC commission.
So not the minutes, but the packet.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Hold on. Sorry about that. God, I got it again. Let me.
Hey guys, we know what we're doing. We're good.
Try that one.
Oh. Ian's Wi-Fi went out, so he's working on fixing that.
Oh no. Yep, that looks like the right one.
Yeah.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining us. We're just waiting a little bit longer to get everything in place, and then we'll get started. We also need one more person to have quorum, so we'll hope someone joins us soon.
This is Travis. I'll just note my camera isn't working today for some reason, so I'm gonna have to be audio only.
Are you sure it's not just that you didn't want to get out of your pajamas?
Well, that is a plus side of it.
I love how seriously you said that. I was like, what?
Exciting news, everyone. I just admitted our 7th committee member, so we do have a quorum.
Great.
That means everything is official and we can vote on things. But I'm still going to give us one more minute because one of our first presentations will be coming from one of the TJPDC interns, and he's having a little internet trouble, and he was just on, so I'm sure he'll be able to get on shortly. So we'll give him another minute, and then we'll get started.
Does he know that he's fired if he doesn't, Jessica?
I'm worried he takes things even more seriously than I do, so we can't tell him that.
Gotcha.
Also, hi, nice to meet everybody. I'm Joe.
Hi, Joe. Yeah,
Hi,
we're gonna
Joe.
go around and do introductions, but thank you so much for introducing yourself. We do have a few new folks and a couple people returning who had been on the committee before and are now rejoining us. So we'll do that first, probably. All right, Lucinda and Sandy, one more question for you guys. Do I read the meeting preamble before we call the meeting to order or vice versa? Before, okay.
Yeah, there's like a couple times where you'll have to change the name, from the policy board to your committee in the beginning. The first paragraph and then also the second paragraph. That's it.
Okay. I'll just read the whole thing.
Oh, and then five paragraphs down, we will begin by calling attendance of the CTAC committee change.
Oh. Okay. All right, if everyone is ready, we're gonna get started and hopefully Ian will join us shortly. All right, so the first thing I have to do is read this electronic meeting preamble. It's a bit lengthy, so bear with me. The TJPDC Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee is meeting this evening July 15th at 7 p.m. with a quorum of voting members through electronic virtual communication of Zoom software application. The meeting agenda and virtual meeting address has been posted for 1 week at 401 Water Street East on the TJPDC website and provided to local media outlets and provided to the general public and CTAC members contemporaneously. This meeting is open to public viewing and public comment will be allowed through electronic communication at such time as provided on the meeting agenda. As a public body, the TJPDC is allowed to meet utilizing virtual meeting procedures and policies as outlined in item 4.0-01 of the Virginia State Budget HB 29. Item 4.0-01 allows public bodies to meet through electronic communication means during emergency declarations, such as the current COVID-19 emergency. The governor has declared a state of emergency. The nature of this declared emergency makes it impracticable or unsafe for the public body to assemble in a single location. The purpose of meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the public body. The TJPDC shall make available a recording of the meeting on its website in accordance with the timeframes established in
Section.
thank you.
Yep.
Section 2.2-3707 and 2.2-3707.1 of the Code of Virginia. The nature of the emergency, the fact that the meeting was held by electronic communication means, and the type of electronic communication means by which the meeting was held shall be stated in the minutes of the public body. We will begin by calling attendance of the CTAC members and then TJPDC staff members. We ask that you keep your communication devices on mute until you prepare to speak. In addition, you may use the raise hand or chat feature to indicate that you would like to speak or ask a question, and the host will call on you. We ask that the public stay on mute except for the public comment periods to cut down on background noise. Those wishing to speak during the hearings or public comment periods are asked to use the raise hand or chat function of the Zoom program to indicate that you would like to speak. The meeting host will call your name and then you can unmute yourself and speak to the group. If you prefer to speak using the chat feature, the host can read your comments to the group. To see the raise hand feature on your screen, click on Participants at the bottom of your screen. The raised hand button will be at the bottom left of your screen under the list of participants. All right, so that was the whole preamble.
Ian said he's in the waiting room.
I have not let anyone else in, and we have another member. Really quick, Sandy, since you're at the top, I'm going to go ahead and make you a co-host as well, just in case other people come in and I miss them.
Are we recording? Is it being recorded?
Yes.
All right, are we ready to call to order?
So Tristan, I'm going to hand it over to you, and your first order of business is to call attendance of the CTAC members first, followed by staff.
Sounds good. So calling it to order, and I believe it's 7:06. All right. So as part of the attendance, I would also ask if everyone, since it looks like we have like 3 new members, Joe, Lucas, and Ray, if we could introduce ourselves. I can go first. I'm your chairman, and name's Tristan Fessel. I live in the Charlottesville area, just north of it in Albemarle County, and I work for S&P Global and IT management, and I deal specifically with audit. So lovely, fun stuff there. But I found myself very interested in transportation and found myself on this committee for the past, I think, 9 months now. Time's starting to fly. But yeah, name's Tristan. Looking forward to meeting you guys. I guess we can go, Joe, could you introduce yourself?
Hey, my name is Joe. I'm a elementary school IA for the city school. Lived in Charlottesville. I did college here and then started living in Albemarle County the year after, now in the city.
Welcome. Lucas?
Hi, I'm Lucas. I also was a student at UVA for a while, but I graduated about 5 years ago. So I've been living in Charlottesville City since then. And I currently work at Crutchfield and Oakhurst Inn part-time. And I got interested in transport just like anybody else would around Charlottesville.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Charles?
Yeah, I'm Charles Proctor. I'm the VDOT District Planning Manager, and I work with the PDC on administering some of the programs through the to meet the federal obligations.
Sounds good. Thanks, Charles. Martin?
Hi, my name is Marty Meth. I moved here about 3 years ago. I'm retired, except being on a lot of committees. I'm chairman of one of the CAC committees, the RIO, the P29 RIO committee, and through that, transportation seems to be on every one of the agendas. So I got interested in joining this committee as well.
Sounds good. Thanks, Marty. Ian? I know you're the intern, I believe.
I'm
He's
muted.
muted. Yeah, I think you're muted, but we can keep moving if you're having an issue connecting still. Oh, looks like you're connecting through. Hey, Ian. Oh.
Hey everyone, sorry about that. I'm having a bunch of Wi-Fi problems, but can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Oh, sorry, I missed the question, I guess.
Just asking for quick introductions.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, so my name is Ian Baxter. I'm a student at the Batten School, getting my master's in public policy, and I'm spending my summer interning at the PDC, working obviously on transportation stuff, and then some research about the community land trust. So, yeah.
Got it. Thanks, Ian. You look like you're in a witness protection program with the background light.
I'm at my parents' house, and they just have, I guess the Wi-Fi is really bad, so I'm in their room just trying to get close to the router.
Yeah, whatever works. I know it seems almost random. I'm just going by the panes, so there's no intention here. I see names here. So Travis, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Travis Pietola. I've been on CTAC for a few years now, and I work in the Land and Community Program for the Southern Environmental Law Center, where I work mainly on land use and transportation issues, both around the state of Virginia and also in the Charlottesville, Albemarle community.
Thank you, Travis. I guess Tim?
Hi, I'm Tim Keller. I'm the at-large planning commissioner for Albemarle County, and I am the commission's representative on this body.
Sounds good. Thank you. Donna? Looks like you're still muted, Donna, if you're trying to talk. If you're still having
Donna, you're still on mute.
Sorry. Sorry. Hey guys, I'm Donna. I'm a professor of transportation engineering at UVA. My research is mostly looking at sustainable transportation systems, special interests in things like autonomous vehicles, electric vehicle planning, most recently also non-motorized traveler safety. I apologize, I'm home alone with both my kids right now, so I'm probably gonna have to keep my video off because they're on some kind of Disney movie and I'm having bandwidth issues. But I'll be listening in and contribute as much as I can.
Understood, thank you. All right, Ray.
I'm Ray Herring from the city of Charlottesville. I was on the CTAC committee for several years and my term expired. The city somehow had a paperwork glitch and couldn't find my reapplication, so they didn't reappoint me last year, but they decided to do it again this year. My interest in transportation mostly stems from almost 20 years on John's board.
Sounds good. Well,
Good to have you back, Ray.
Cool. And so I guess the staff, Jessica, you introduce yourself.
So I'm Jessica Hirsch-Ballering. I am a transportation planner here at the TJPDC. Sorry, I'm also admitting people as I'm talking. I seem to be the staff member in charge of CTAC. Really briefly, my background is actually in public health, and I got interested in transportation as a way to combat chronic disease. So I care about all transportation modes, but my heart is definitely in those active transportation modes like biking and walking.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lucinda.
Hi, I'm Lucinda Shannon. I'm also staff with the TJPDC. I'm a transportation planner, and I work mostly on the MPO and other transportation projects.
Sounds good. Thanks. Stuart, I see I skipped you, Stuart. You're back on my screen. Can you introduce yourself?
My power went out here, so then I was like trying to get logged on. Sorry about that. My name is Stuart Gardner. I've been on CTAC for about a year in the new vice chair looking forward to working with everyone. My background is in the automotive industry, primarily with manufacturers. So I've worked with Chrysler and Dodge, most recently Volkswagen. And now I recently changed roles to environmental nonprofit based in Charlottesville. So yeah, this is a great group, and I look forward to meeting all the new members and continue to work with all the existing members.
Well, thank you. And Sandy.
Hi, I'm Sandy Shackelford. I am the Director of Planning and Transportation for the PDC. I guess before I came to work here, I spent 11, 12 years, something like that, as a county planner for Campbell County and Nelson County. Before that, I did some policy research for the American Trucking Association. So have a little bit of transportation background, a lot more planning background, and just kind of try to fit in whatever gaps we have that need to get done.
Sounds good. I think we got through everyone. Is there anyone we missed? I missed, sorry.
No, I think you got everyone. Thanks, Tristan.
Cool, great. So as I think the first thing we have to do today is public comments. I don't see anyone with public matters, or at least representing it. Does anyone see anyone that might not be a member or part of the county or planning commission?
There are no members of the public in attendance today.
All right, looks like we're good on that item then. Then I guess we need to review the meetings. Does anyone need time to review the last meeting's minutes? They were posted in our current agenda for today, if you hadn't had a chance. Does anyone have questions on the last meeting's notes from, actually not last, it was January's?
I think we already reviewed these before the last meeting. We just didn't have a quorum.
Okay, yeah, and then to approve those. All right, so does anyone have questions before we move to approve those? If not, do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the January 18th meeting minutes.
I'll second it.
Sounds good.
And then let me just jump in, Tristan. Sandy, Lucinda, can we just do a voice vote then? Okay.
I approve along with them.
So Tristan, what we'll do is you just say all those in favor and everyone.
Okay, got it. All those in favor, please say
Aye.
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 Sounds good. Anyone say nay? All
And
right,
then you'll also
carries.
want to ask if anyone's going to abstain, because people who were not in attendance at the January 18th meeting should technically abstain from this vote.
Yes, I will abstain.
Thank you. That makes sense.
I'll posthumously abstain. Take back my
Also
vote.
abstain.
Cool. All right. Seems that it carries.
Good job.
Yeah. All right. So going to the next one here, it looks like we are now on the MPO's transportation, the one pagers with Ian. Ian, do you have
Oh,
something?
Tristan, if I could stop you for 1 second. We have the meeting summary from last time, so it's not official minutes because it was not an official meeting. So if you could just, if anyone wants to make any changes to that meeting summary, please let me know. Otherwise, we can just move on.
Okay, yeah. Does anyone have any questions about the May 20th meeting we had? In the minutes there.
And while you're thinking about those questions, I'll also just throw in really quickly, we did not have a March meeting. For all of you new folks, we do meet every other month because everything was just beginning to happen with COVID-19. We didn't have an official meeting in March, but I did send out meeting materials at that time. And what we'll do is we'll have those posted to the website as we put up these minutes in the meeting summary.
Understood. Any questions on May 20th's meeting minutes? I know there's some of us weren't here, but if none, I think we're ready to move on to our first presentation by Ian. Ian, you good to go with your internet?
Yeah, I think it's working now.
Looks like you're changing rooms.
Thank you for being patient. So yeah, so I guess hello again. So my name is Ian Baxter. So sort of the big project that I've been tasked with this summer is to take a list of topics with which I was not familiar with. My background is primarily in voter registration. So I have no real transportation background, which kind of makes it perfect that I was kind of trying to translate some of these these dense sort of I guess sets of dense terms but very important, obviously, processes that that the PDC goes through to do all sorts of things. And I've tried to distill it down into these one-pagers. So I know Jessica sent out an update, or sort of the first draft. Since then, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I've gone ahead and sort of added color and so if you just want to, this is sort of what they look like now, and obviously I'm sure there'll be a way for us to send it out afterwards, but I'd like to hear if anyone got the chance to take a look at them. I'd love to hear any general observations, because again, it's new to me, a lot of the concept, and even sort of stuff that you guys might find elementary, like sort of even the difference between an MPO and a PDC was something that I was learning. So we kind of hoped that kind of unfamiliarity kind of translated to writing it for an audience that wouldn't be acquainted with these terms. So the ultimate goal is for someone who has absolutely no idea, for example, what a long-range transportation plan is, and is able to read this document and sort of have at least the gist, maybe have it just enough to where they would be able to participate in one of these meetings without sort of having a dictionary of acronyms next to them. So that's sort of all I have. I'd be happy to send sort of the more colorized, funner to look at versions of these primers after the call, because I've been fighting to make them look a little bit better. But yeah, as for content, I'd love to hear any sort of suggestions, or yeah. So that's pretty much all I have for what the primers are. I mean, the goal really is to hopefully acquaint people, with what not only the MPO does, but with the broader PDC mission, and how important the organization is for transportation in the region. So I'd be happy to talk to any of you about it.
I'll give you big kudos, Ian. My first year on the committee, my entire first year was trying to figure out what these acronyms that the planners used all the time.
Thank you.
I think Ian did a really good job of explaining what he was trying to do with these primers. Sandy, I was wondering if you might pop in and also talk a little bit about how this fits in with our public outreach and public participation plan. If you wanted to speak to the overall goals of the TJPDC and asking Ian to create these.
Sure, yeah. So this was, the primers were actually one of the things that was approved as part of the Unified Planning Work Program, which there is a primer on that if you haven't looked at it already. But that's the work plan that we submit to through VDOT to the FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration, to be approved, that tells them how we're going to spend the money that the MPO receives to support our planning services. So one of the things this was really important is over the past year, we really heard a lot from you all, especially about the importance of making sure that we do a really good job of increasing the representation of a diverse set of needs and demographics on our committees. And it seems like it's been a passion, at least historically, of this committee to improve our outreach specifically to areas that are underserved, maybe don't have the same capacity to spend a lot of time reading through technical, dense information. And so part of this is just to try to help make reduce the barrier for what it's going to take to participate in the process of preparing some of our planning documents, which tend to be highly technical. So the idea is that we can have this kind of information available, which hopefully will also help people who are new to committees like CTAC just have a quick frame of reference when we start talking about some of these programs, to get sort of a really high level view, know sort of what the big picture goals are, and be able to enter into the discussion, but also to help the public understand why these documents are important, how our funding works, what the goals of them are. And again, just start making the information and the process more accessible to a wider diversity of stakeholders.
And did you also want to talk, Sandy, about where we might put these, like on our website, et cetera?
Yeah, there are a couple places. I think one of the things we would want to do, sorry, my dogs just came into the house, so they're clicking little footprints. We'll definitely put them on the website. I think we would want to include information of these with any sort of outreach materials, just have places where they can be accessed either online, or make sure that they're also available if anybody wants to pick up a hard copy. We'll talk a little bit later about our public participation plan, but we'll also look for some opportunities to other organizations or geographic locations where it might make sense to make this information available. We would want to sort of put it together as an orientation packet for any new committee members, to anybody on the MPO, that kind of thing. If you all have other suggestions on ways we should share this or who should have access to it, I think that's certainly part of this discussion.
I remember I was speaking a couple weeks ago to Emily Dreyfus from the Legal Aid Justice Center, and she was especially interested in documents like this that are supposed to be for public consumption, that are going to go out, especially in post, or like in this like COVID society where it's sort of like hard to access things in person, that she would actually be really interested in getting her or members of her team to sort of break these documents down even further. Because what I loved about this is I thought it was a perfect introduction for me. But I have a college education, and you know, I'm able to parse through stuff like this, and I understand how things like committees and local government work. But I don't know if somebody who's actually coming in from the public level at like base or below her might be able to parse this. But Emily Dreyfus from the Legal Aid Justice Center would be perfect, and I can get her email, but she's also online.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and I did want to ask, do you all, if we do have more specific suggestions, do you all want us to send those along? Is now the time? I mean, I only had a few, but.
Yeah, I think if you have really specific stuff, or don't feel ready to say all of your thoughts at this meeting, you are welcome to email me.
Okay.
Make sure that whenever you guys email me, just as a reminder, please email me directly. Don't include the rest of the CTAC committee, just so we stay within the rules of open meeting law.
Okay, I just have a couple I'll throw out now, a couple more that I think I'll just send later. I did note on the, well, first of all, Ian, thanks for putting all these together. I agree, they're great and will be very helpful in getting everybody in the general public up to speed. For the kind of initial one about the overview of the NPO, I had a couple of suggestions, I think, specifically regarding CTAC's role and how we fit into things. So like at the bottom of the first page, the paragraph on how it's staffed. So I'll wait for you to get up there. Yeah, so the at the end we say federal and agency representatives and other transportation stakeholders. Appointed members of the committees within the MPO are often elected or appointed officials, and then we get to another transportation stakeholders. I would suggest adding and members of the public, because I think just trying to make sure that anybody reading this can see that there are committees like CTAC that anybody from the public can potentially join. Just making sure it sounds as accessible as it is. And then similar point on the next page, the actual bullet for CTAC, the Citizen Transportation Advisory Board. Well, one is that I think committee should be swapped in there. At the end of that, we say members of this board are recruited and appointed by the policy board. It seems like you can just kind of submit an application on your own behalf without being kind of officially recruited. So I was thinking if you could change that to like drawn from the general public and appointed by the policy board. Again, just getting at the idea that anybody can apply for CTAC.
Yeah, thank you. This is like the first one I did, but yeah, now I'm sort of having. I agree. Sort of. I'm not sure. I can't see who's speaking, but I agree that even this is might be inaccessible to someone without a background in local government. And yeah, obviously the point is to encourage as much public participation as possible. So I'd be happy to, yeah, I'll definitely make those edits, but a broader note, it's important to me as well, that, you know, for example, like my neighbors I can be able to talk to them about what these organizations do, because it does affect, you know, traffic safety in our neighborhood. You know, that's something that a lot of people care about. And this is one of the ways to combat speeding or all sorts of local problems. So that's a great point.
And we all recognize how complex this stuff is. So it is very hard to boil down. So definitely think you're doing a good job and on the right track.
Oh, two things struck me a little bit. I have to say, it's going to sound strange coming from me because I worked in the Pentagon, so I'm used to this very in-depth type of policy papers. But it seems to me if we're going to reach out to citizens who don't have too much of a background and generally interested, is there a Cliff Book version of this, maybe a PowerPoint version that could be put together? I mean, it's much harder to do, you know, a very shortened version and still communicate some of the basic ideas. So that's one thought I had. The other thought I was going to say on that one sentence, the members of this board are recruited and appointed by the policy board. I was appointed by the Board of Supervisors to be a representative to CTAC. So that sentence isn't exactly correct in any way. Forget about recruited. It isn't only a policy board per se, or unless you broadly define the policy board as a wide variety of other organizations. So I think that really needs to be clarified. But the basic point about the Cliff Notes is the thing that I think it needs some help with. I don't know how everybody else feels about that.
Yeah, this is Stuart. I think with any communication, you always have to think about who the audience is. So if this audience is for general public, or if you're targeting to a certain group, it would vary. So I think that's the first kind of question to answer then is this something that lives on the website, or is this something that's put into, you know, how is it used and who's it specifically for? Because for some audiences it's great, and for others it may be less useful to the other comments.
If I was to give a guess, or Ian, I would ask, is the first page the idea here, the boilerplate? Yeah, that right there. I mean, this is what you would provide. You maybe chop up depending on what audience. This could be the bluff, if you will, the basic up front.
Yeah, I was actually, I talked to Sandy about this sort of, one way I was trying to, because it's tough to make, I tried to simplify it as much as I can without sort of sacrificing what the nuance of how the processes work. But I do agree with, I think it was Martin and Stuart, both of what you were saying, because we were sort of thinking a way to maybe graphically depict how these organizations are related to one another, and how they're related to, for example, Charlottesville City local government or the County of Albemarle Board of Supervisors. And, you know, I guess entities that folks are already acquainted with, talking about the role that generally the PDC or the MPO plays in terms of policy decision-making, without, getting a little into the weeds about, you know, the structure in terms of the committees, who's on the committees. That might not be as important to other people. And I totally agree with that. In fact, that's sort of going to be the next step. And I'm almost done with almost sort of the first round of these, finishing up a few about housing and environmental stuff. But after that, I kind of want to look at it and say, okay, how can I make this even more accessible to someone who has absolutely no background, but wants to participate? Because that's really important to me. Yeah, that's a great, thank you for those points, guys.
Hi, this is Tim Keller. I think this is a great step forward, and I agree with what my colleagues have said. I think that one of the most exclusionary parts of transportation planning are the acronyms. And so I would recommend that the acronym be the title for each one of these, and that the real title be underneath the acronym. So I wouldn't say Charlottesville Albemarle Metropolitan Planning Organization. I would say MPO first, because I just think that that's part of the thing that makes people feel like they don't understand, the general public feel like they don't understand what's going on. And then I have a question for you all, and that is, how much reinventing the wheel are we doing on this? I mean, there are thousands of comparable organizations because of the way Federal Highway Administration is set up and state departments of transportation are set up. Are there dozens of these comparable fact sheets or summary sheets that have been done by other groups in the state of Commonwealth of Virginia, for instance? Did you do the research to see what was out there before you started, in other words?
I haven't seen any. I looked, I mean, I didn't look specifically for one-page primers, but I haven't seen any in the work that I've done. But
I mean, I certainly think when I've been up like in Fairfax County, which I think many of us would agree is one of the best organized jurisdictions in the Commonwealth, that you see all sorts of these things in the old paper way.
yeah.
Right? And maybe these these I think are really excellent in terms of the old-fashioned paper way. I could see them being on Board of Supervisor, Planning Commission, City Council on the table where they have the extra agendas and they have the sign-up sheets. I could see a place for actually hard copy for this sort of thing that would really be useful, especially when there's a transportation topic on the agendas. But then there is this other part, and I think that recommendation of something that's more like a PowerPoint that is really almost a slide or for each one of them would really be useful on the website.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. And the other thing I want to point out is that while Ian has focused mostly on doing these for the MPO, we are doing these for the entire organization as well, for all of the other PDC programs. So, so our goal will be that all of our programs that meet a certain criteria, at least, we probably won't do these for contracted projects, for example, but anything that is sort of a mandated project or a mandated program that we facilitate, we would have one of these for. So it also just creates some cohesion as far as the accessibility to information across our organization as a whole.
So this is Donna. I agree with Tim. I think it was Tim who said that it's, you know, this is really good in terms of detail. So these things, it looks like something you would find on a paper brochure, and that seems reasonable. But when thinking about someone who's being introduced to these concepts for the first time, we need something a little bit more concise, maybe less wordy, more graphics. So one thing I was thinking is that, sure, we have explained what the various abbreviations mean here, but we have not really, in a quick way, explained how each of these things relate to each other. So right now, someone's going to have to go through all of these documents in depth to be able to understand how you know, the MPO relates to the long range plan, and how does the committees provide input. So maybe something that's like a shorter PowerPoint slide format, but also quickly can overview the relationship between the organizations and the various documents. You know, and that may be enough for someone who's just being introduced to this stuff for the first time without having to read all of the details.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really great suggestion.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
I'm going to piggyback off of that a little bit and say that I think it's like, yeah, it is concision, because I think earlier someone had worded it more like we're breaking it down a little bit more, but I feel like that that it feels like we're like thinking, looking down on the public a little bit. But really, we're just trying to empower people to feel like they have an opinion on these things, to feel like they can participate in these discussions.
So I guess the way I'm looking at it now is maybe this would be sort of the second step between participating fully in a committee and never ever having heard of what an MPO is, right? So if you know, your first introduction might be something a little more simple, a little more this is what, you know, this is how this is related to this. That's a horrible way of saying it, but generally a lot easier to digest. And then if you are more interested, I think these are kind of like the cliff notes of sort of the abstract or the introduction of a lot of the actual for example, the long range transportation plan. I kind of hope that this primer reads as an easier to digest introduction to that without having to because you don't have to understand all of the acronyms that are in there, all the ideas of fiscal years and all these, you know, everything that's in there. So I appreciate it. That's all really good feedback. I definitely agree. And it's something I was thinking about, because there's sort of a point where you can't translate it any more simply without kind of starting another type of project. So yeah.
Yeah, so I'll just translate this into like college professor talk, I guess. I think of like that PowerPoint slide I mentioned as sort of the attention catcher, right? So when I'm introducing a topic to the class for the first time, what do they want to see? And then these notes, the detailed ones, this is like the reading assignment, right? They do that outside of class. I don't have to read to them all the words on these things.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
And
Thank you, everyone.
the old professor really supports the new younger professor in that approach. And I would also say that as beautiful as the graphics are, I'm hoping that these are just placeholders because, you know, there are great graphics out there that could stand for these different ones as opposed to these beautiful rural images.
Hey, thanks, Tim. Could you write me a teaching evaluation?
All right, well, everyone, I know that we're about 10 over on the agenda time here. So is there any other major questions or feedback? I believe we can forward those over to Jessica, as she indicated earlier. So anything else for Ian, please forward to Jessica. And thanks, everyone. And Ian, I'll just reiterate everyone else. It's a good step forward. Moving to the next one for the MPO documents, Lucinda and Sandy.
Is this the tip document?
Public participation plan memo.
Oh,
okay.
I'll cover that real quickly. So we are supposed to review the public participation plan every so often, and I think we might have waited a little bit too long to do that. But one of the big things, obviously, is that with COVID, there was the opportunity to do some electronic meetings. And so I started looking at this again and realized that we probably needed to update this to at least reflect, you know, procedures for when we had electronic meetings. And then there were some other things that were just kind of out of sync with what we were doing as an organization. So we wanted to update the public participation plan to also reflect any changes in our organizational procedures so that we weren't out of compliance. What I really want to iterate with the public participation plan is that this is a Federal Highway Administration requirement as part of the MPO. And so the goal when creating and implementing this plan is to make sure that we check all the requirements and are in compliance with the federal regulations. But we also want to provide enough flexibility so that we can you know, kind of customize our process to what makes sense for a specific project or a specific plan. So we don't want to be too specific with what we're going to commit to doing, but we do want to be specific enough to let, you know, everybody know that we're going to meet the requirements, and then we'll, just as an organization, we're committed to exceeding those. So the things that were updated were just references to how we share information. We don't necessarily always do those on a bi-weekly basis, for example, so we wanted to remove any specific references to that. Where we updated some of the sections on accessibility for people with disabilities and non-English speakers. I think that's still highlighted in the document because I was going to check with Albemarle County and Charlottesville to make sure that we were consistent with what they were doing and make sure that I understood what their procedures were. And I think theirs is also 2 days notice, so I don't think that's going to change. Updating plans for communicating with traditionally underserved communities. Previously, the plan had just mentioned that we would, it may have mentioned that we would advertise the minority in publications that had a wide minority population that the publication circulated to. There aren't really a lot of those, so that's not a very effective way. I mean, we're still going to do it because it's required, but it's not a very effective way to actually reach those communities. And then also that we would put planning documents in certain geographic locations. And so I believe we also added that we would work with creating a list of organizations such as what you mentioned. I believe it was Travis that mentioned, you know, like the legal aid centers and other organizations or community groups to make sure that they're aware and can inform their populations that they work with when there are important documents that, you know, we want public participation with. And then we just generalize some of the information to remove references to specific individuals so that doesn't get outdated immediately. So after, actually earlier today, after you all have already reviewed this, I got a few comments back from Jaunt as well, just asking to update some of their information to remove references to the capital JAUNT and modernize the references to their organization as well, but nothing really substantive. So if you have any initial feedback on the draft plan, I'd be happy to hear it. Otherwise, after today, this is more of a notification that we'll go ahead and start the 45-day public comment period that's required in the federal regulations. And we will come back in September to let the MPO committees and the policy board review this again. And at that point, potentially vote on adopting the revisions to the plan. Any questions or comments on that at this time?
You didn't, or I didn't see a link to the public participation plan itself or like any written document to it. Is that available online? Can I read that?
Well, I sent it to Jessica. It's not available online yet, but after this meeting, we will put it online for the public comment period. So,
just jumping in for a second, Sandy, what you guys should have in your packet is just a link to a memo where Sandy was talking about the public participation plan, but like Sandy's saying, we'll have the actual plan available soon for you to take a closer look at.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sandy.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a working document?
Yeah, so there is the old plan from 2016 is available online, so you could look at that one, but there aren't a lot of substantive changes. It's mostly just modernizing it, and there are a couple of revisions. So I just got the comments from Jaunt today, so before I send it to you all, I will make those changes. And then that plan will be what's put on the website for public comment as a working document. And so then we'll be able to come back for another round of reviews
Gotcha.
in September when we do this again before there's, and then there can be a vote in September once we've met that public comment period, or if there are more things we have to work out, that's always an option as well.
So in terms of our input, you'd like us, once it's posted online, to send that as we review it, and then it sounds like maybe in September we'll have a chance to see some of the public input received and provide additional comments at that point.
Correct, yeah.
Great.
And let me also say that at the same time that we're updating this plan, I had mentioned earlier that we're also working on a communications plan for the PDC as a whole. And so the goal of that is to go beyond this public participation plan. But again, the purpose of this public participation plan is to communicate that we are going to comply with the federal regulations while still giving us as much flexibility as possible to customize any sort of outreach to what makes the most sense to, get meaningful engagement from our communities.
Sounds good. Any other questions for Sandy?
Thanks,
Sandy. Lucinda, I think we have a memorandum on the TIP amendment.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see the memo. Let's see. And this is actually pretty easy. Can you guys, yeah, you can see it, right? So we have the Transportation Improvement Program, which is basically kind of the budget of what the state is spending, how the state's spending the federal money that's allocated to our region for the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And this update, it's an amendment because it's such a large amount, but it's basically adding in a little over $8.5 million to one of the groupings for preventative maintenance and system preservation. So if you see on the screen, there's the old table, which is in the Transportation Improvement Program, and then the new table, which we're going to ask the policy board to approve next week, next in their next meeting. And it's pretty simple, straightforward. This is just, you know, preventative maintenance on the roads, and they're adding money to it in fiscal year 2020. So it's one of those complicated things. And it's pretty simple though. I mean, it's just adding some money. It's kind of a bookkeeping thing. Are there any questions?
Yeah, this is Stuart. Is that new money or money being transferred from one place to another?
It's Chuck, are you on the line?
Yeah, it's new money they became available for additional paving, mainly just paving of the roads in the area of the MPO over the next year. Because it'll be FY20, which is this year, and FY21, which is FY21 is this year. FY20 was last year. So it's just to first meet federal obligation requirements to show how much money we spent on these improvements in this fiscal year or last fiscal year, and what we plan to spend this fiscal year. We're also in the middle, we just updated the TIP. So this is basically amending the old TIP document because a new TIP document is still being reviewed by FHWA, and it will be reviewed and approved probably before October. So at that point, we'll have to revise some of these tables to reflect some of these changes too. So in the new document.
You know, just for clarity's sake, when I looked at this, I said transportation. Transportation is wide ranging. It's really road maintenance, right? It doesn't include any of the maintenance of buses or whatever else comes to mind.
No, it's just preventative maintenance. The TIP's broken up into a bunch of different sections by road type. And then you also have groupings for a lot of smaller projects. And then there's appendices that usually those are listed out. For maintenance, however, it's not as straightforward because we don't necessarily know how much we're going to spend until the year before. So that's why these have to be changed. Generally, they get amended throughout or adjusted throughout the year, but sometimes they'll have to do amendments when there's a large shift in funding to these groups to support just ongoing maintenance of the roadway.
Is it maintenance? Because I actually have a question, which I'm going to get to you at some other time. But is it maintenance or, let's say a roadway is partially paved and needs to be fully paved? Would that be included in this, or is that a separate type of a project?
That would be under, if it's like a gravel road that's resurfaced, that would be done as a construction included in the construction grouping for like improving a non-hard surface road.
Okay.
That wouldn't be this. If a road is basically starting to break up and they're going to go ahead and patch it and repave it, that would be what this would cover.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
But to just double check Stuart's question, it's coming from a new federal fund, not something existing and being pushed around.
Yeah,
I think this I don't think this was new federal funding. I think this is money that's just, they pulled off other programs to obligate it and put it in this program to obligate it this past year.
Okay.
So Chuck, would that be like saying it's new to us? It's not like new VDOT money, but new to the MPO?
Well, I mean, this is NH. I mean, it's not bonus funds. I mean, there's a bunch of different funds that we can get. If some states don't spend all their funding, it's put out to other states who have spent all the money, and we can actually use that money. I don't think that's what this was. I think this is just regular money that we needed to spend this fiscal year. We would lose it. So they basically shifted in here, and we were able to spend it on resurfacing.
Understood. All right. Thanks. Lucinda.
Does that make sense?
Does to me. Does anyone else have questions concerning that? All right. If not, Lucinda, is there anything else that we need to discuss on the TIP amendment?
No, that's all. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. All right. I guess the next one is the STIP. We have a draft to review.
Is that me too?
I will click on it right now. I'm just looking at the agenda. Jessica, from whom would be presenting on this, the statewide transportation improvement program?
Yep. So Lucinda, I was hoping that you
Sure.
had something to say.
So that is actually, it's just a notice saying that the statewide transportation program is on the VDOT website and for review, it's a public review period. So again, it's what they plan on spending from the federal dollars and where they are going to allocate it in the upcoming years. So the public, you guys can go on the VDOT website and take a look at it and make public comments through their website. This kind of relates down to our TIP, which is kind of for our region, our Metropolitan Planning Organization area. They're tied together.
Got it.
I can probably help with this too if you need it, Lucinda.
Sure.
Yeah, the STIP, I mean, we went through a process this spring, and because of COVID, a lot of the processes were delayed. But we went through, starting last year, updating the TIP document, which is the Transportation Improvement Program for the MPO. And that's just the MPO area. The STIP is the statewide Transportation Improvement Program. And it's basically a 4-year planning document that shows the feds what we're planning to spend their funding we're going to try to obligate, federal funding we're going to try to obligate over the next 4 years. And we were supposed to approve it in June, but because of the delays, we weren't able to get it approved. So we're running through the public review process right now. We hope to get it approved later this year, later this summer, and maybe by fall. So this is just to let you know that it's out there if you guys want to go out and review it and provide comments.
I do have one question. I was doing a quick scan of it. It's over 400 pages long. I remember earlier in the year that there was a right-of-way purchased for the railway going from Richmond to Charlottesville for passengers. I see no mention of the word train anywhere unless it's a part of another word like constraint, something like that. So I was just curious if there's been any developments on that, if that would be in a document such as this, something that would be dealing with multiple districts, such as that kind of project, and where that might be going in the next 4 years.
I'm not sure on that particular project, how it was funded. It may have been already paid for, so might be in the previous document.
Okay.
And I'd have to go and look to see how it was.
They might not talk about the vehicle. They might talk about the way itself. So I know that they don't talk about like cars. They talk about highways. So they might be talking about railways instead of trains.
Yeah, just a quick look. I found rail showing up a lot, like space, rail, space.
Yeah, there are sections for rail in all the tips. Because I mean, we do the Department of Rail and Public Transportation. They actually support the at-grade crossings and putting up new flashing lights and arms for at the crossings, and they upgrade the crossings periodically. So those will show up as actual line items in the grouping under the TIP group document for rail.
Understood. All right.
But
as far as
for
that
the
project goes, we don't
purpose
have
of
any
the-
information on it this time. I know that was a specific call out, but it seemed like a large one that might be of interest to
Yeah,
our
that one I don't know.
community.
I don't know that much about.
All right.
If it was included, I don't think it would be included in necessarily in our TIP, but I'm not sure how that was reconciled regarding federal funding,
Understood.
or if it involved federal funding.
All right. Well, that was my only question. Does anyone have questions on the STIP or STIP? Great. For the FOIA resolution, is the next topic.
Oh, I had no idea these were in there. Okay. So that is just that we're required to have a Freedom of Information officer, and we have nominated David, I can't remember his last name.
Blunt.
David Blunt, to be our Freedom of Information officer. So if a member of the public wants to view one of our public records, they will contact David Blunt and he will get that to them in a certain amount of time. So that's just a resolution. We're asking the policy board to vote on designating him as our officer.
Would he then be the point of contact that we would send people to? That's good to know.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you require any motion from our group on recommending this, or?
If you wanted, you could recommend that the policy board pass it, but it's pretty standard. I don't think it needs a recommendation.
Just to clarify, David is also going to be the FOIA officer for the PDC, so it'll be consistent across all of the organizations.
Great. Any questions about the resolution about selecting Mr. Blunt for the FOIA officer? Well, if not, we can move on to the next topic area. And it's Chuck and Lucinda. It looks like there's smart scale updates. It's the Lucinda show.
Yeah. Let me just, I can pull that up because I have the policy board packet up here. So let me share my screen again. And I'm not sure how much you want to get into the weeds. So the SMART scale is the state funding for transportation projects, and our metropolitan planning organization has 12 opportunities to apply. The city can apply for 4, the county can apply for 4, the Metropolitan Planning Organization can apply for 4, and usually we apply on behalf of the city or the county or other localities. And then the TJPDC, the Planning District Commission, can also apply for 4 projects. And again, the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and the PDC, the Planning District Commission, typically are applying for projects on behalf of the city or the counties that have extra projects that they need more applications for. So here is a summary of what projects are being submitted by which entity. And we will ask the policy board to pass 2 resolutions supporting the projects. The first resolution will be just to support the projects that are being submitted by the other entities, by the city, the county, and the PDC, just saying that the policy board supports those projects. And then the second resolution will be for the projects that are being submitted by the MPO on behalf of the county. And so that would just be a resolution stating that they're going to apply for those projects. We did a workshop on these and they're on the website, and they have a pretty detailed explanation of what each project is on the website. It's on the MPO website. So I think what I'm going to do is just ask if there's questions and not try to go through all of the materials.
I did want to add really quickly that we also have Chuck from VDOT here to answer any questions people have about the smart scale process itself. He's really knowledgeable about that, as well as knowledgeable about all of the particular projects we have, but Lucinda can also speak directly to the presentation, the public workshops that were held on the 13th and 14th.
But these are going to be ranked soon, I guess. Is that right? In August, if I remember correctly, Chuck?
The way the project,
go ahead.
The way the process works is these projects are, once they're submitted, they're evaluated and scored, and then they're ranked based on how well they score across compared to all the other projects in the state. And then they're funded based on, there's two pots of money. There's a district grant pot, which is, for us, it's about $20 million across the district. Statewide, it's around $500 million across the state. So basically the projects are ranked. Once they're ranked, they're chosen by the policy board, not the CTB, Commonwealth Transportation Board, and funded. And that'll take place next spring. We'll spend the rest of the year, once the applications are submitted, which is the submission date was extended to August 17th. They'll be submitted, and then this fall, we'll evaluate and score the projects. And then at the January CTB meeting, they will be presented to the CTB. The ranked list will be presented to the CTB for their evaluation. And then during the spring, they'll basically go back through the process and see which ones they want to fund out of the list of projects that are prioritized.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
And just to back us up just a little bit, especially for our newer members. So back in April, that's when the PDC and the MPO submitted our pre-applications for Smart Scale. VDOT then gave the initial go-ahead that we were ready to proceed on all of those projects. And now we're in the process of getting these resolutions of support that Lucinda mentioned from the MPO and the other required entities in order to submit our full applications, which Chuck was saying are due now on August 17th. So we've done the pre-app. We're coming up on the full application, the final application, after which all of the ranking happens and all the determining about who actually gets funded. Right now, what Lucinda is showing to you is some of the public feedback so that you guys can make, and correct me if I'm wrong, we want CTAC to make a recommendation on whether or not the MPO should offer its support for these projects, correct? And that support is required in order for us to submit our full applications and to be considered by VDOT for funding.
Do we offer support on a project-to-project basis or on the document as a whole?
You can do it on a project-to-project basis.
This is Stuart. Chuck, can you remind us the general categories that Smart Scale ranks? Isn't it something like safety, congestion, and some other things like that, just at a high level?
Yeah, there's safety, congestion, accessibility, environmental, land use, and what was the last one? There's a sixth.
Economic development, I think.
Economic development, and then transportation and land use is the sixth one.
Thank you.
And Chuck, I was just going to ask briefly, I think you mentioned maybe $500 million for the Smart Scale pot. Is that kind of pre-COVID effects, or does the state have a sense that they will have that amount of money, or is that likely to come down?
I don't know if they've officially announced it yet. The money, I mean, it's based on next year's, it would be FY22 budget. So, I mean, I don't know, but what's going to happen over the next year. We don't even know what the budget is for this year. So, and this would be basically, would it be adopted in June of next year and start with the July budget, which would be FY 2022.
So
But that's
I
what the money that's historically been available for the different pots of funding.
I just put up the web page that has all the smart scale information on it. It has recordings of the workshops, and then it also has links to all of the, these are links to the projects that will show you the page, like a 2-page summary of the project with the maps. And then also on that page, you can link to the report that summarizes all of the comments right here from the workshop. We collected comments for about a month and summarized them in a report. So that's all available on the website if you want to review it.
So I have to say, just to give you some general feedback, I mean, we are where we are, and it's not necessarily Chuck's fault, but the projects I'm familiar with, I've heard some of our citizens sort of really say, none of their comments were really taken in. None is too harsh a word. The comments weren't really taken into account. Now, this is, I know, a long process. It's been going on. We've had about 3 briefings on smart scale over this last year. But somehow this process needs to be really looked at to make sure that we really, that the citizens' voice, because I know they're frustrated, are better taken into account and addressed more properly. I'm not saying there's anything you do on this. This is so far along. But I do think we ought to come back and talk about how this comes about and how we can better reflect citizen inputs. Seems to me it's much more an insider gain than a general gain, general public gain.
So we actually are, I'm going to go back to the packet. We are addressing that. So one of the things is it's very difficult for the citizens to kind of run the road transportation projects because the state maintains and runs the roads. So the state has the money and is making the decisions on how, how we spend it. And they have a criteria that they're using to select projects that is based on safety and as we said, as Chuck had said before, that smart scale criteria. But we heard the kind of the issue that you brought up of the public comment, and we are going to, I'm trying to pull it up, propose to the policy board to, let me just pull up the memo, to start our smart scale process earlier and vet the projects that the MPO and the PDC are going to submit. And if there are any that need more public participation, we will pay attention to that and do it earlier ahead of time.
And I'd also make a suggestion for CTAC in particular. I know we've had smart scale projects come up on our agenda a number of times, but it is often one of many other items, and sometimes we have to cram it into 15 minutes at the end of the meeting. But these applications seem important enough that we should maybe schedule like one meeting that's just only to review smart scale applications in the next round.
Yeah, I'm for anything that brings visibility. Listen, that starting earlier would be good. Focusing it, into the particular, not have everybody all over the county. If it's in my area, it's Rio. If it's a Rio projects, do a workshop just for the Rio community. That would be helpful too as well.
Okay.
I've got a question, and it comes down, well, It fits into this whole category. So we all know that there was tremendous controversy over the Route 20 South project. And we know that the supervisors didn't support it, I believe.
That's right.
That's correct.
And yet it's still on here.
No, it's been removed. It's on the website. It's on the website because that was the workshop, but that Route 20 project is not in the policy board packet. It has been removed from the resolution. They won't be asked to vote on that.
Okay, so we're not being asked to vote on that either then.
Right.
Okay, because I thought when I skimmed through this earlier, I did see it in this packet.
There is one other Route 20 project, but it's the intersection one with 53. I saw that too and immediately thought, hey, wait, but different.
Yes, there is another Route 20 project. That
Yeah, I'm aware of both the projects, but
Okay.
I swear that I saw this one on this in some aspect of skimming through it. Maybe it was, well, I'm not sure where I saw it, so, and I just have it digitally. I didn't print this out, so.
I do have one question around Smart Scale. I know, just like Travis, it needs its own time frame, but the generation of the new projects, we seem to be on our heels reviewing what has been already scoped and framed, and we gave comment on that. How are these things generated, spawned, if you will, and how is that shaped, and who does that? Is that at the state level? Do they just know themselves? At what point does the community help in that idea generation?
Yeah, so can I speak to that, Lucinda? Just because I've talked about this about Route 20 a million times, I think I've got it down pat now. So these projects typically come way back during the long range planning process. So there are no projects that are put forward for Smart Scale unless they've been included, at least in our case, unless they've been included in some sort of long range plan, either the LRTP or in the cases of a lot of the projects I work on with the Jefferson Area Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. So these are long-term planning documents that have gone through the full public participation process to identify all of the projects and prioritize the projects that our community wants to work on in the coming years. So from there, staff make decisions. Typically, like the localities will make decisions about which projects are most important to them. And what's most important to them at any particular time is not necessarily going in exact numerical order of what is listed in the LRTP or the bike ped plan as the most important thing. It depends on what other projects are going on in their communities, what else they found funding for, and how they can look for new funding to complement the projects that are currently being funded. And then they come to us, to the PDC and the MPO, to request that we use some of our spaces for Smart Scale to apply for those projects that they've deemed the most important. That's how it's worked up to this point. Because of what we've heard in the feedback process for this round of Smart Scale projects, we are considering changing that process. And if this is something that's really important to you guys, I encourage you to check out the policy meeting. The date is listed in your packet, but Lucinda, maybe you have the date off the top of your head, the
22nd. It's July 22nd.
Great.
At 4 o'clock, it's an earlier meeting.
Yep. So if you can attend it, you can see that whole discussion, because changing this process would have both positive and negative impacts. Positive because it would give us a lot of time to review the projects in a very public way and get a lot more public input about the projects that we actually apply for. But it would also limit our ability to, it would just make it more challenging for the localities to do the work necessary in order to submit these applications. They'd have to be on a much earlier timeline in order to submit, when we only have the opportunities to submit every 2 years. So pros and cons, that conversation is going to happen first at the policy board meeting. I will definitely be listening to that, and we can include that on our agenda for next meeting, where Lucinda or Sandy or even Chip can come and talk about what was discussed at the policy board, and we'll definitely want CTAC's input on how we might move forward.
So just to go back to the point that I had asked before, I think now you all can clarify this for me. So in table 1, sum of comments received by project, there is a discussion. It's both the Route 20 shared use path is in that because there were comments from the public and you've done an analysis of the full set. And then there's a discussion that speaks to that a bit, at least in general terms, below that. But then after the fact, when we get to the actual number of projects that are moving forward from there, it's been removed.
Correct.
So that's how I saw it in here because it's part of the comments.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Tim, I will say that I think we did make a mistake in how we put together this packet. So what you were looking at and what you guys have in your packet is the list of comments from the public, not just the public workshop, but all of the comments we've had in regards to Smart Scale. What we did not include was a list of the projects that are only the projects that are moving forward and summaries of those projects, which if I had a chance to redo this, that's what I would also include in your packet.
And I think, again, as you're talking about ways to do modifications for the future, that would be the piece to have up front in future.
Yeah.
In the interest of time, since there are, looks like 16 projects that are being recommended, I just wonder if it may be more helpful if individual CTAC members just say if there are any particular ones they want to call out for discussion rather than trying to go through all 16 one by one. Unless you all want to, it's up to you.
I mean, I don't think we want to keep anyone here until like 9:30 or 10 at night, so I don't think we should go through all 16 of them. I like your suggestion, Travis. If there's anything that anyone wants to ask specific questions of Chuck or Lucinda or any of the other TJPDC staff, let's do that now. And if you want to dive more deeply into this website that Lucinda has up, that she's sharing on her screen, you can look at each of these projects more closely, and you can follow up with me with any questions and I can get you guys those answers. The only problem with that is we wouldn't be able to do anything official as a committee in terms of making a recommendation to the policy board before they're going to vote next week. So that's
there is a public comment period at the beginning of the policy board meeting, so you could comment as the public if you wanted to.
So that was a very roundabout way of saying if you have any questions about any of these projects, now is the time to ask them.
I guess I have one. I think I know the answer to that question. These projects get submitted, but if they get approved, there's still some scope to revise them slightly. It stays within a boundary. Is that right, Chuck?
Yes, to a certain extent. We try to do our due diligence to make sure we identify most of the details with the material we have available. Granted, we don't have survey on these projects, so there's a lot of still unknowns, but we want to try to quantify as much of what's going to go on the project as possible. So there is some minor ability to make some deviations, but not major. Like if you change type of intersection improvements you're going to make, then that would be a scope change, and it would have to be go back through and get reevaluated at the time that change was made. So and then if it proves that it's not of the same benefit as the original submission, then it could be a problem where it may not get funded or funding may be removed from the project.
Okay. So for example, if we had a project, which we do, which has an R cut, I'm sure you know which one, and we want to have a traffic light instead, that would be a new project.
Well, there is a traffic light there already.
No, there isn't what I'm talking.
I mean, so the one that we're looking at, there is a traffic light there at Frays Mill and Burley Station.
No, that's not the one I'm
That's
talking
currently.
about. That's not the one I'm talking about.
If there's not a signal there and you're looking at doing a signal there, it's a little bit more than that because depending on the road, it would have to be evaluated and determined that a signal is justified there. Because putting a signal in doesn't necessarily provide the best solution for that situation because it can create more crashes than what you're trying to solve. So a lot of things have to get evaluated with a signal. So, but yeah, if you wanted to make that kind of change, it would have to be reevaluated to see if it would still be, have the benefit to get funded.
So is just the other thing to clarify, Jessica, is next week, are they approving the smart scale at the MPO, or there's still some time to readjust? That's what I'm not clear about.
The policy board would be voting to give their resolutions of support, which is a necessary component in submitting our final application.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the final applications have to be in by the 17th. So we're up against the boards here to really make any major changes to any of the projects. We're actually going through most of these and doing the final cost estimates, but most of the sketches and the concepts have already been finalized.
Okay.
Well,
Can we be realistic here, though? The jurisdictions that are involved, the city and the county mothers and fathers, have let you all know, and their representatives are the people on the MPO. So in reality, they have made their decisions in each of those bodies, which of these they support and which ones they don't. And they are going to be just restating that at the MPO through their representatives.
So yes, so what Tim is mentioning is that in order for these pre-applications to move forward as full applications, they not only have to have the resolution of support from the MPO policy board and the commission, but they also need to have a resolution of support from, if they're taking place in Albemarle County, from Albemarle County, or from the city of Charlottesville if they're taking place in the city of Charlottesville.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you please repeat it?
Siri apparently thought I was talking to her. Sorry, guys. But regardless, those the localities, the Board of Supervisors and the city of Charlottesville have already voted to offer their resolution of support. So yeah, we're just kind of double stamping it.
All right. And speaking to what Travis was indicating earlier, is there any specific projects that anyone wants to call out? They have any questions on before we move to review and discuss approval? If not, are we ready to approve?
Hey, I have one question. This is Chuck. I know when the Albemarle County reviewed the projects for their resolution, they were still debating on which project on Rio Road to submit. Do you know if they ever revised or resolved that, whether they were going to submit the Belvedere R-Cut, which is what the project the gentleman was speaking to, or the roundabout at John Warner Parkway, or a combination of the two?
They have not
I
decided.
don't think okay, I didn't think they had, so
No,
that's still something that's still supposed to be resolved.
So our plan is to ask the policy board to approve it, and then when Albemarle County decides which ones to submit, we will amend the resolution.
Lucinda, I think it's a similar question, or in the same vein. So for the 29 Fontaine the Hillsdale South Extension and hydraulic in 29. I believe in those past workshops and meetings that, I mean, are these all going to be submitted all together and approved and then teased out to which ones will actually go forward? Or are we planning to submit all three?
No, all of those are being submitted at this point. I need to verify whether or not Charlottesville approved or provided a resolution with their support, but Albemarle has. And those are the ones that will be submitted by the MPO itself. So we're pretty confident with those projects that there aren't any outstanding issues that need to be resolved.
And this is Stuart, just to clarify, then the state looks at these and could accept some or none, right?
We've already looked at the pre-applications, and it's not that we won't, if the application meets the criteria, it's going to be validated and accepted and scored. It may not get funded if it doesn't score high enough when it's evaluated. And that's that process that we go through. But I don't think that any of the applications will be, all the applications should be accepted and validated.
All right, well, any questions on any of the projects? Are we ready to, is anyone ready to motion for approval?
What's the purpose of the motion from our standpoint? It should just, why do we have to have any sort of resolution for this particular case? Because it's clear for me, at least for Albemarle County, that we have some projects still up in the air. I'm not exactly sure where they stand. We're going to get a briefing next week.
You don't have to provide any resolution of any kind if you don't want to. As individuals, you can make comments either to me to pass along to the policy board, or you can make them yourselves during public comment at the policy board. Any resolution that you do make would be to state that as a committee, you guys are in favor of a resolution of support for the projects being put forward.
Does that make sense, Marty?
Yeah, it makes sense. I understand.
Okay. All right. All right. Anyone want a motion for approval, or do we want to just kick it to the MPO for next week?
My sense is that people are hesitant to approve because they really haven't spent the time to go through each one and are to be comfortable with it. I don't know if other people feel that way.
Absolutely.
I have to say that this is where I have a question about this whole advisory committee, and I have as long as I've been on it. As I watch how these things play through, I think that as we're trying to have a more expanded opportunity for public involvement, that this CTAC might become more important. But if we look at what has happened in the one city and the one county case, and I do feel that I know these all fairly well, we've heard that there's not been a decision by the county on hierarchy, meaning the executive or the staff and supervisors on Rio Road, and that ultimately the decisions are made by each of the jurisdictions. And this is an attempt through a planning district commission and through an MPO to try to have a collective decision making, which I think is a really positive goal. But when you see it at this particular point, you see that it is, whoever said stamping, rubber stamping, whatever it is, rather rubber stamping something that is fait accompli.
Can I make one comment?
Sure.
The biggest reason that we would get the resolution of support from the MPO for the projects that would be submitted by in areas and by localities that are outside of the MPO is mostly not to take the place of, you know, saying that we support this politically, but mostly just as a confirmation that any plans that or requests for any projects would be consistent with the long range plan and is consistent with the regional transportation network goals. That's the biggest, that's one of the biggest purposes why why we would submit the letters of support or the resolutions of support from the MPO. And it's the same thing for the PDC. Now the projects that are going to be submitted by the MPO itself is a little bit different because that's the policy board saying that they agree with those are the highest priority projects in the area. But that's just something to also keep in mind, that that's one of the purposes of the resolution.
I think that's a good point, and with that, I'll make the motion. If no one else will make the motion, I will make the motion.
Thank you.
Jessica, can you tell me if I'm able to second a motion?
I think so, Sandy. Sure.
I'll second if that's the case.
Great.
Great. So seconded, I guess, by me. So like, are we doing another voice of yeses and nos, or how we want to conduct it the same way as before, like the minutes?
Can we go one by one? I just want to double check that everyone feels heard. So Tristan, what you would do is you would just like go through a roll call and people can say yay or nay.
Sure, I'll go through the participants list. So I'm going to go from the bottom now as it's showing to me. Donna, how do you vote?
Yay.
Thank you. Stuart? You're muted, Stuart.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you. Ray?
Yes.
Thank you. Lucas?
Abstain.
All right. Thank you. Joe?
I'm also going to abstain.
Roger that. Travis?
I'll vote yes, but again, just putting in a plug to kind of have a little more in-depth review during the process going forward.
Understood. Thank you. Marty?
Abstain.
Cool. Tim?
Same.
All right. And did I miss anyone? Myself, yay. Cool.
Good catch.
All right, Jessica, I believe the yays have it, but you can double check me 10 times over.
Yes, I think the motion carries.
All right, great. Anything else on Smart Scale that we'd like to discuss? I have to get out of a bunch of windows back to the packet. Let's try to follow along. Oh, great. So COVID-19 impacts, I think that's the next one here for us to get through.
Yeah, so this can be really brief. So as I'm sure you guys are all aware, COVID-19 has dramatically impacted the way we move. VMT, or vehicle miles traveled, is down, although slowly creeping back up now that restrictions have been lifted in many areas. Data suggests that biking and walking is up based on counters on roadways and paths. Transit ridership is dramatically down, and it in many ways mirrors the decrease in vehicle miles traveled. So anyway, COVID is having a dramatic impact on transportation. I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to voice any interest in this topic, and specifically what you're interested in, so that I can better prepare for our next meeting, which would be in September. I just want to make sure that our agendas are always filled with things that are not just important to the processes of the MPO, but things that are of interest to you guys, that you guys can be very excited about. And this is something that I think could be very exciting to a lot of people, but I wanted to hear from you guys directly if this is something you want to pursue either through presentations or just as an agenda item. So tell me if this is of interest to you, and if so, exactly what. Is it transit? Is it bike and ped? Is it vehicle miles traveled? What would you be most interested in learning more about in relation to COVID-19's impact on transportation?
I'll say I'm very interested, and I think all three of the things you mentioned I think are going to be very important. So I don't know if I can pick one, because I think I'd like to see updates and presentations on all three of them.
Yeah, Jessica, to second that whole thing. I know we've touched on it maybe like 6 months ago, or maybe more. We were talking about the miles traveled versus, and how its impact on taxes are being. I'm wondering if that's a topic we could somehow delve into, about what the future might hold, if whether or not COVID, for instance, is kicking that more in the butt, if you will, how it's impacting, revenue sources and how we're going to fund projects in the future, if it's spurring it.
So speaking of transit ridership, I'd like to, I am interested in how transit access and use has been, or is different spatially and across socioeconomic classes. So far, some of the stuff we've been reading is showing us that yes, general transit ridership is down, but that's definitely not the case equally through various socioeconomic classes, and sort of any adjustments to service, we need to take that into consideration.
This is Stuart. I'd love to know more about if there are any cities out there that could be progressive benchmarks as far as closing streets to traffic and making them more walkable, bikeable, livable cities. And what are some inspiration we could get from cities around the world that have kind of taken COVID to be an opportunity to transform their cities?
I'd like to think about transportation from places in the county that are maybe not as close to grocery stores, in areas where car ownership might be down, or people have to share cars, or have traditionally done like rider share in their neighborhood.
And if we're looking for topics outside of COVID, I mentioned it earlier. It's about the rail. What practices and what projects and what ways in which we'll start looking at rail in the future, as connecting us to major hubs like Richmond and DC areas, and what we're looking at there. Doesn't have to be anything now or next meeting, just something in the future perhaps.
No, just noting, Tristan, that was definitely discussed in our January meeting. So hopefully we can come back to that for sure.
I'll add one more specific. When it comes to bicycle and pedestrian networks, I'd like to know what, if any, assessment you all have done or can do about how much usage of our sidewalks and trails has increased during COVID, and how you see that playing out going forward too.
Great. Those are all great topics.
I would just one last piece, and maybe Donna and Chuck could assist us on this, maybe you folks, but just the fact that we are not getting the really most current kind of data using the technologies that we have before us. So from the planning perspective side, it's extremely frustrating that we don't have origin and destination studies that are current and up to date using smartphone data and the sort of collection techniques that are used. And I'd like to know, because you're our regional brain trust, what we might be doing, where we might be going to get this kind of information, because it would answer several of the questions that, or it would allow us to collect data to answer several of the questions that have been posed by fellow members of this body just before me.
I can chime in a little bit on that. There's basically a wealth of private data aggregators, I guess you want to call them. They're aggregating data from, cell phone signals to location-based data, all kinds of ways to collect and infer this type of OD data, sometimes even by mode, depending on your speed. And so I know, for example, VDOT has had a partnership, or I guess a contract, with one data provider called Streetlight, who has been able to utilize cell phone data to provide things, bicycle count approximations and other types of detailed data that we've not traditionally had access to. There are a lot of vendors competing in this space though, and they all say their data source is the best. So one of the challenges for the agencies, and maybe Chuck can chime in on this, is checking to ensure that the quality of the data is good, because it is expensive to purchase. But yeah, so I think this stuff is available, and so we're just kind of working through with what's, or in the profession, we're trying to work through to see what's a good way to assure quality behind the data.
Yeah, I can chime in. Yeah, we have an ongoing contract with Streetlight, so we have full access to their data set. They were just evaluating. I don't know if we picked up the bike ped piece of it this round of contracts, but we've had the contract for a number of years. And when we did the long range transportation plan, we actually used Streetlight as one of the data sources to develop the O&D matrix for the region as part of that plan development. So we are using it. The problem we run into is some of the data, especially the further you go out from an urbanized area, there's not enough points to have a lot of quality of the data that you're getting from Streetlight. And it's only been in the last probably 4 or 5 years that we've gotten enough data points even in the urbanized areas to where it works reasonably well. The Research Council over at UVA just did a study last year through Old Dominion, where they looked at the Streetlight data for various types of uses to see how accurate it was. And they published a report, and for some things it's good, like for ADT data, it's not very good. For turning movement data, it usually predicts them they're not very accurate. But for O&D data, which is what we primarily use it for, it's usually reasonably accurate, and we can scale it to the data that we have in our database that's based on actual counts. So we're comfortable with doing it that way. And that's how I've traditionally used it in the past. So we do use it, and it is available for what we need.
Thank you both.
Okay, well, is there anything else that anyone wants to suggest, or any questions people have? All right, well, I want to thank you all for all of those ideas, and I will work with Tristan and Stuart to make sure that those things end up on the upcoming agendas. That's it, Tristan.
Thanks, Jessica. I believe this matters for the public. I still don't see anyone having joined, so I'll assume there's no matters there. So I think we can adjourn. So I think the time is 8:46, excuse me, 8:46. So thanks everyone, and welcome to those who are rejoining us and new members, and hope everyone has a nice, safe ending to their summer. Sad as they end when we're just the beginning or middle. So thanks all.
Thank you, Tristan, for successfully running your first online meeting.
Successfully, all right.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone for sitting through that. See you all.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Aye.